What's up, all you Minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for one of my most anticipated reprints of the year, and that is Gotham Central Omnibus from DC Comics. So let's check this out together. And welcome back, everybody. So if you've been following my channel for a while, you know what this book means to me. It's one of my top 10 favorite omnibus of all time. Not favorite DC, not favorite crime, not favorite Ed Brubaker or Greg Rucka. Top 10 favorite Omni of all time. I love this story. And the fact that it went out of print for a while, people were like, when do you expect this to come back? I honestly, not until like a new TV show or something was going to come out that I expected this to be back. And we do have a new Gotham TV show coming out on HBO Max, and maybe that's why they brought it out, or because they're reprinting a bunch of things over at DC. Regardless, you all get to find out what this is about and why so many people regard this as one of the best DC books ever, or best books, period. All right, so this is the latest printing. I'm going to be comparing it to my original printing here in a little bit, both on the outside and on the inside. But first, let's take a look at this. You have Gotham Central, the title right there. The big names, of course, Ed Brubaker, Greg Rucka, Michael Lark. Those are the three people who were the brain trust of this series. And then eventually, you had Stefano Gaudiano join, and Kano. I assume it's Kano. Maybe. Was that a Mortal Kombat bad guy? Anyway, he's a great artist. Here we have the spine, Gotham Central Omnibus, Brubaker, Rucka, Lark, Gaudiano, and Kano. And then the back of the book. On the freak beat in Gotham, every cop works in the shadows of the bat. No truer words. There is the ISBN and the price tag. Now, the price is $99.99, which is the price of the original Omnibus. And I'm pretty sure right off the bat, dad joke, the only one I swear, is the thing you're going to notice is the different logo. This is the newer printing with the newer DC logo and then the DC Comics logo from years ago. Everything else, identical. Eisner and Harvey Award winning series. Now, I'm not sure if it was just my copy, but my spine was always an eyesore to me because it felt like the dust jacket that was printed for my book just wasn't thick enough here on the spine. So you have art from the backboard or from the back of the dust jacket and art from the front of the dust jacket come to the spine and bleed a little bit into the spine. Which it happens from time to time. Not just DC, Marvel, it happens with them too. So it's just nice to see this completely cover that spine. Could be just my copy, by the way. I'm not sure if anybody else's copy's like mine. And then the back of the book is completely identical as far as what the words are. They are using a different font this time around. ISBN is a little bit different, of course, but the price is $99.99. Both of the books were printed in Canada, though. So we'll be looking at the differences here in a little bit as far as the internal artwork. My old book there falling on me. But first, let's look at them under the dust jacket. All right, under the dust jacket, I was really hoping they would change this up. This is what I like to call the dust absorber. It just looks really weird whenever you touch it. Like you have, wow. No matter, if you have oil on your skin, it doesn't matter if you wear white gloves. I mean, I guess people wear white gloves when reading books. I'm not that self-conscious about my books, but no disrespect to anybody that is. You need white gloves to read these, that's fine. But, if you have a little bit of oil on your skin, you're going to get some markings on here. And you could tell this one here was very well read and loved. But I was hoping they would stay away from that and just put art on the board, but it looks like it's the exact same design, so much so that the letters Gotham Central are embossed in both copies in the exact same location. One thing you're probably noticing is the thickness of the first printing. It's not so much the thickness, I'll show you here in a minute. There's nothing really different on the back. They're both just completely blank, like so. But what I was saying is it's not really so much the thickness of this book, it was just the way that it was bound. This is during the age of DC when they were hit and miss with their Omnis, and this was a miss for at least my copy. Maybe there are people out there with wonderful, beautiful, perfect copies. Sealed. You open those up. But here, let me show you. For example, this is the new printing. This is the way that the binding looks down at the bottom. Let me show you what. You have that inner spine. However, the problem is that these hinges are just so worn. It's like detaching itself from the book, making it look like it's warped. And I think, like I said, that's due to the kind of binding that we're using, the kind of glue, the kind of sewn binding that they use for this particular version. And then feels like the spine is just cracked down the middle, making it look like this indentation here that you can probably tell. It's like this flimsy piece right here, not really doing anything, just the inner spine holding the bunches together. Whereas this looks like the way a book's supposed to look like. This is flushed right up against the spine, and the bunches are all there, held together by, looks like an excessive amount of glue. Let's get this open and look at this artwork, talk about some of the stories, and of course do a little bit of art comparison with the original printing here in a minute. Can't believe I went on and on about the binding and comparing it to the first volume. I haven't even talked about the beauty of this book. So 968 pages of pure goodness is what you're going to find in here. This is Gotham Central Omnibus. Ed Brubaker, Greg Rucka, Michael Lark were the brain trust of this particular series. Here is your table of contents where you're going to find each of these stories and who wrote them. So you have most of this book right here written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka. Ed Brubaker focusing on the day shift of the police force, Greg Rucka focusing on the night shift, Michael Lark supplying the artwork. You do have an introduction here by Dwayne Swarzynski, and who is a crime noir novelist, and talks about his love of not just this series, but Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka. So what exactly is this about? What do I mean when I said this is their brainchild? Okay, so all three of these wonderful human beings worked together on Batman for a while. They were there during the New Gotham era. Some of them stayed way past that, made it into Batman Fugitive, and also some of the War Game stuff. But there was this one crossover that was called Officer Down. For some reason, DC has not reprinted that, and it's not part of New Gotham Volume 1 or 2. So if you watch my Batman reading order, you know which trade paperback I'm talking about. And it is a phenomenal story where somebody shoots Commissioner Gordon, he's put into a coma. So that's the story that sparked this idea, because both Rucka and Brubaker were wanting to focus more on the police side of Gotham. Focus less on Batman and focus more on how the cops are dealing with these villains with superpowers. So in the very first story that you start asking yourself questions. You have Mr. Freeze gets interrupted by these two police officers. It turns out they weren't even there looking for him. So of course he freezes one of their hands and completely freezes the other one. You know, we've seen that happen all the time in Batman stories. But you don't see the horror and the ramifications of what could happen if a human body is frozen. In here, I mean, this is like almost forensic science of what would happen if the human body were to hit a certain degree, and it's catastrophic. You know, so at the very beginning, we have a police officer that pretty much loses his partner because his body just falls apart. He dies because he's frozen to death. His body falls apart. And that is a horrific way to die. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the rest of the series is going to be like. This is, again, written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, the first couple of issues, and then they split off. Like I mentioned, Ed Brubaker decides to take on the day shift, and then Greg Rucka takes on the night shift. So then you get to meet other police officers in here, some that I'm sure you've seen. You do see Commissioner Gordon. He's not commissioner during this time, however. We do have a new commissioner, and that's Commissioner Akins. We have a new captain here, Captain Maggie Sawyer, who first appeared in the pages of Superman, John Byrne's Superman. You do have Bullock. He comes in from time to time, but then you have other characters that you might have seen, especially during Greg Rucka and Ed Brubaker's run on Batman. Like you have Romy, you have Marcus Driver, Josie McDonald. But of course, one of the biggest police officers in here that you will fall in love with if you knew nothing about her, and that is Renee Montoya. As a matter of fact, it's going to be hard to talk about this because there's so many stories in here I want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about just a couple of them without giving too many spoilers. Sort of just what the premise of the stories are. But the one that won the Eisner Award it's a very popular story, and it happens through the third story arc in these pages. And it's pretty much Renee Montoya. She gets outed at the station as a lesbian. And that one in Eisner, not because it was groundbreaking to have that happen. I mean, it was back then. But just because in the way that it was done, that it became part of this investigation, it became part of the story, and the way that some of the people treated her differently, and, some of them didn't care, or some of them, of course, always knew. So it's that side of things, and then, of course, her personal life gets turned upside down, and then you have the return of Two-Face in that particular story, and Two-Face has always had this thing for her. If you read, especially No Man's Land, you see the beginning of that relationship between Two-Face and Renee Montoya. So you see him react to these accusations, or as he likes to call them, but it is a wonderful freaking story. There's also a story in here called Dead Robins. I love that story because it features the Teen Titans, because every once in a while you're reminded that, oh yeah, that's right, this world takes place where superheroes exist. Yeah, this is the story right here with Renee Montoya. But what I was saying is that you forget because you're so caught up in just the crime scenes, or you're caught up with the investigation. You want to know exactly how they're going to be able to... There's Two-Face right there, drawn by the phenomenal Michael Lark. You want to know how they're going to be able to solve the crime. You want to see the people just get arrested. And yeah, you forget that, oh, that's right, Two-Face is part of this world. Weird of him, just show up at the police station or kidnap Renee Montoya. The other story, of course, is the one that a lot of people talk about, and that is Soft Targets. Oh, yeah, that's right. But before we get to Soft Targets, there's this awesome daydream story about a girl daydreaming about Batman. But Soft Targets is a story about somebody sniping the cops of the Gotham Central Police Department. And it seems like it's the Joker that's sniping all these characters out. And man, that story is so good. Because, you not only get police officers in here, detectives and captains and commissioners, you also get, people that are doing the forensic science. And some of these people have relationships with each other. So you get to see a side of things that you normally wouldn't in, Batman, Detective Comics. You usually see Batman beating the crap out of a villain, the police arresting them, and that's it. That's where it ends. But this is these are real people, and you start feeling for them, and you want to know more about them, and you want to start following them. This is going to sound creepy, but it doesn't matter. You want to start following them home. You want to see what their personal lives are about. To me, I'm a big fan of Homicide, Life on the Street, The Wire. I've never been that big a fan of Law and Order, so I can't really compare it to that. But to me, this is like The Wire, or this is like Homicide, Life on the Street, or Heat of the Night, something like that. Just true police crime, just happens to be set in a world of Gotham City, which is a fictional city. But some of these stories really hit close to home. And there is another character that appears through these pages. What is his name? Jim Corrigan appears through these pages. But, here, let's go back a little bit so we don't do any spoilers towards the end. But don't be confused by that name, because this is like the third time somebody in DC Comics has been named Jim Corrigan. And it kind of does set the stages up for where you think it's going to go. And it's interesting, the twists and turns that it takes. Now, Michael Lark ends up leaving the book. There's a Mad Hatter story right here about his past, and he's such a creepo. Michael Lark does end up leaving the book in issue 25, and that's when you get the two other artists. And then Ed Brubaker leaves the book with issue 36. So it was decided by Greg Rucka to kind of finish the series in issue 40. So this does collect all 40 issues of this stellar run. Now, I've done a retro view of this. So I may have, I don't know, I don't really watch my videos, so I may have said the exact same thing I did years ago whenever I did a retro view. So forgive me, but I do love this series. But what I was going to say is that In that retro view, I tell you where you want to go after reading this, because there was no follow-up to this. That is the biggest crime about this series whenever you're reading it. There's nothing that follows this. There's no Gotham City Police Department series or Gotham Central Volume 2. So in that video, I tell you where to follow, because there's one specific character that you will want to follow after this series, because you want to know what happens to this character. Because, like I said, be prepared to fall in love with some of these characters, and be prepared to hate the guts out of some of these characters. Now, 968 pages. There are some extras in the back. So you have some character designs and character studies right here of some of the police officers. Not very many. And then a bio on Ed Brubaker, Greg Rucka, Michael Lark, and the other creators here, Stefano Gaudiano and Cano. Wait, he's Spanish. I'm going to go with Cano. There we go. Not Cano. All right. So you heard me mention the excessive glue when I was showing the binding, so I'm sure you saw me having to hold it down a little bit. But I mean, that's a good-looking eye. Never thought on my 44 years on Earth I'd be saying that's a good-looking eye. But what I was going to say is I think, you know, after a few times of opening this up properly, so but for the record, I've only opened this up twice as far as like how to relax that spine. I've only done it twice. So because of all that glue, I think I probably should have done it at least 4 times. But after a first read through, shoot, I can't show anything in the back. So let's, I think it will open up better. But for now, it's wanting to close a little bit. And I did talk about the Dead Robin story arc. So you can find out for yourself who's under that costume. Now, let's do a comparison. All right. So what we have here is the original printing and the new printing at the bottom. Colors, honestly, look almost identical. This one down here has a little bit of more of a yellow tone finish to it than this up here. But the other thing, of course, is the way that the book lays over. The original printing, like I showed you, had kind of a warped spine anyway, so it just folds over a lot different than this does. As far as the paper quality, yeah, the original printing does have thicker paper than the new printing, but honestly, not by much. Not much. Let's look at some pages here, just to let you know that the way the book lays over, even with this book right here, the original printing that I don't know how many times I've read it. My wife has read it. I lent it to a friend. It still lays over like that, like wanting to close. This one I think will be fine over some time. But even this, with page 56 right here, this is the way that it lays over. And that's whether it's towards the front or the back here. Now, one thing I noticed in the solicits, for some reason, this book right here, the original printing, stated that it had only 856 pages, whereas the new printing has 868. I can guarantee you they have the exact same page count. They're identical. Other than, of course, the way that they were made and bound. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you've never read this, if you've been waiting for this reprint, if you have the hardcovers, if you have the big thick trades, the original trades, or the original series and you've read it, what you think of the series. Does it hold up after all these years? Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. If you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Please don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Check out our Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.